All right, we are back with part two of the desk build. The first thing I needed to do after the base was fill in these gaps where the drawer slides are going to go. Because these are inset, if I was to just mount them directly to the side of the cabinet, when I opened up the drawer slides, they would just hit the face frame. So I needed to fill in the space. I just used my planer. Of course, I didn't record this, but these are just some scrap boards and was able to fill them in, plane them down so that they're perfectly flat, and mount my drawer slides to them. So just pre-drilling some of those holes and then driving in the hardware to get these mounted permanently. Another step that was really important here was to measure out the distance from the slide from the front of the cabinet, because I did have that bevel that I had cut earlier. I did want my panels, once I got them to the right thickness, to line up in the cabinet. I didn't want them to stick out farther than that bevel. So I needed to measure that out, but pretty easy stuff. Once I measured it out, I was able to test out the soft close feature on these hinges. It's my favorite thing to do. You'll see me do it again later on in the video. But just pre-drilling some more holes, very repetitive, like I was saying, and just drove all of the hardware in. We were good to get these mounted. I repeated these steps a total of 6 times because I do have 6 drawers going in these cabinets. So just space those out, and then I could move into measuring. Once I got that measurement, I could jump over to the table saw and cut it to size. That measurement is going to be the exact width that I cut this for the front and back pieces of the drawer. The two side pieces of the drawer are going to be the exact dimension of the drawer slide. So if you have a 16-inch drawer slide, 24-inch drawer slide, whatever you have, that's what you would cut the length of the drawer to. And they're all going to be the same thickness. So I did 2 drawers just like this, because the two, one on each side of the cabinets, and then I was able to move into the groove. So I do have a 1/4 inch piece of plywood for the bottom of the drawer, and I just cut that on my table saw. So I just cut one groove about a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and then I just slightly bumped my fence over and just kind of kept sneaking up on it until I got a great fit with the plywood, testing it with the plywood. But that's how I created that little groove. And then I just ran every piece through until I got it, perfect. Then I could put the cabinet, the drawers together. I did use a little bit of glue, but nails was fine for this application. Again, I'm probably will rebuild these drawers, but just for these purposes, nails, they went together really quickly, and I just used my a clamp to hold it as I nailed everything in. You can see that groove on the top of the drawer. In a minute, I will slide in that quarter panel. Undermount drawer slides are a little bit tricky, but so what I like to do is I like to just cut the bottom piece straight. So there's no need to have a groove, in my opinion, because you would have to cut out 2 grooves on each side of the cabinet corners to allow for the drawer slides to pass through. So I just cut that off completely, and I just cut it to the bottom of the groove. So that way I just clamp it together, nail it, and then I can just slide the piece all the way through, and I don't have to worry about cutting out notches that are precise, anything like that. So just nailing those in with the same technique. Again, this is the same dimension of the drawer slide. So this is the same piece that I cut earlier, and just nailing it into place. Next, I could move into putting that plywood piece into the drawers. I just threw down a little bit of glue. This is just going to help with structural integrity, making sure that nothing that I put in this drawer is ever going to break through the bottom. Just glue and some nails at the top. So this is why I like to do the drawers this way. I just have to slide that panel in, lock it in the place in the bottom, and then I could just throw a few nails in there, and that's it. I don't have to worry about the drawer slide, cutting the notches precise. This is pretty much it. And then I can go ahead and get ready to install the hardware. I actually enjoy putting undermount drawer slides together just because the hardware is pretty easy. So these are what connect directly to, this is what locks into the drawer slide itself. You're going to put two screws in each side, two or three screws. Just put all the screws until the screws are gone. And that's pretty much it. Pretty easy stuff. Your drawers are done. Well, actually, there is one more step. Technically, you do have to cut a little circle. So I just used a drill bit, but you are going to have to cut a little circle in the back of the drawer, which will prevent the drawer from tipping out or sliding out of place. This will lock it down all the way. And if throughout this entire clip you are looking at my knuckles, just know that that's not ash, it's sawdust. So mind your business. Once I tested out the clips, then I could test it out in the cabinet. So you see me jamming this in there. What this is doing is creating two little indentations of where I need to cut out the drill bits. So once I got the indentations, just got the proper size drill bit, being very careful not to blow through the back of the drawer because then I would have to remake it. So just cutting deep enough for that little clip to be able to fit in there on both sides. It's probably like a quarter of an inch deep. So this is half-inch plywood. So I have about a half inch or a quarter of an inch there. So no issues there. But once I did that, I could test it out and pop it back into apparently the base. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of me plugging it back into the cabinet, but it did go in very, very nice. And you'll see here in a minute how it ended up looking once I completed that step for all drawers. Like I had said, kind of where we left off in part one, I was very happy with how this base turned out. As you can see here, it looks really good. And so I just connected this with some small L brackets. This way it'll allow for wood movement. Shouldn't move a whole lot, right? These parts are pretty small, but in case there is an event where it needs to move or contract, it's able to do that freely. So I didn't glue this down. I solely used these L brackets and did this for both sides of the cabinet. Once this was done, I could actually get my first look at how this desk was coming together. It looks really good. I'm really, really happy with the progress so far. Of course, we got the drawers installed, we have the base complete and assembled, and we do have the top resting on those two stretchers. Nothing is bolted down at this point, but overall, this was my first look at how this desk is going to look. It needs to be sanded, stained, and that'll be a wrap for this project. But very, very happy with how it's coming along. After I was done admiring the desk, I moved into a much less desirable process, which is sanding. This is very, very necessary. Anytime you're building anything, you have to sand your project, right? If you want the finish to look good, if you want the stain to appear properly, you have to sand it. This is the only clip I'm going to show sanding, but just know I sanded for about a day straight on this project. So I sanded through the grits. I started right off the plane of the boards, or probably around 60 off my planer. So I sanded to 80, the whole entire thing. And then I sanded the whole entire thing to 120, sanded the whole entire thing to 180. And then I went and sanded the rest to finish grit of 220. And that's where I stopped. You could keep going. A lot of people do, but for the stain, I usually get pretty good results stopping at 220. And I sanded the entire desk, the cabinets, the top, the sides, the drawer fronts, everything. And then I could apply my first dose of stain. So this, I honestly was not happy with this stain. This is Varathane Walnut. And as you can see, it's very, very light. I was going for a dark walnut look with this project. So this stain didn't really do. I ended up having to mix up some different stains to get the desired color I was looking for. And of course, wood is just different, right? The way wood takes stain is all wood is different. So that's another factor, but I just spread the stain around. And after trying out a couple different stains, also letting the stains sit on there for a while, I was able to get the desired color I was looking for. Still probably would have liked it to be even darker, but I was happy with how it came out. the stain color ended up working. I ended up using Minwax dark walnut Minwax, added a little bit of black, just a little bit, not a ton, but that actually helped me get to the desired color. Now I know moving forward, just Minwax dark walnut is my go-to walnut stain. So you live and you learn. Even here in this next clip, you can see it's still kind of light, especially when I take off that top layer. So just taking off the stain, that way I'm not absorbing too much stain into the wood, but this is still very light for my liking. What I was going for here was a dark walnut, like I was saying. This is not that at all, right? So you'll see in the next clip, though, I did end up getting it to a color that I was happy with, and that's much darker. So took a little bit more. And this is wipe on poly. I will be honest, this is my first and last time using this wipe on poly. I think it has a lot of different great applications. For furniture, I don't know if this would be my go-to. There's a lot of different and better options. I was still kind of experimenting with my finishes at this point, trying to figure out what I like the best. So figured why not give this a try, but honest review, it is thick. All right. I'm talking about thick. My whole forearm was cramping after I was spreading this stuff out. You can't work it too long because then you'll start to get the brush stroke. It's a whole process, right? It's a whole technique that you learn as you do it. But I ain't gonna lie, it's thick. It's like molasses syrup thick. All right. So be prepared. If this is what you decide to use, just know it's going to be a workout for you. Now I can go ahead and move into installing the drawer fronts onto the drawers. I got stain and poly on everything. Now it's time for drawer fronts. So I use playing cards. This is easy to count out the amount that you want the gap to be for both sides. You do the same thing on the sides to make sure they are perfect. So then I just place the drawer front on top of this. I'm not sure why I have those two extra spacers down on the bottom, the gold handles. Not sure why I ended up doing that, but I did put a rag over it just to make sure I'm not messing up that stain finish. And then I clamped it down. Once I put in those two playing cards on the sides, the two different stacks of them, to get the correct spacing, I just clamped it down and then I could get ready to start driving in some screws. Here you'll see me going in with my 18 gauge brad nailer. Of course, brad nails wouldn't be strong enough to hold this, especially considering this is going to be pulled in and out constantly. This brad nails over time would wear down. So I just tacked in a few and then I ended up going in with some screws to really solidify that. There are some issues with me pushing it in. So this is why I'm glad I left the back off of the cabinet. I ended up putting the back on after everything was done, but just giving me access to the back. And there's that slow soft close. I got those done and then I could move on to installing my drawer pull hardware. These were just some hardware that I grabbed off of Amazon. Modern pools, I didn't want to have anything too bulky, too big. I wanted it to be nice, sleek, and kind of add to the overall design. So I went with these. I measured out where I wanted them to be. Of course, I wasn't going to try to get them perfectly dead center in the middle. So I just found a measurement that looked good and repeated those steps for every single one. So I clamped it down, pre-drilled the holes, and then secured it with the provided screws. Pretty easy stuff here, but it was important for me to clamp it so that it's not moving. And then when I moved on to the next set of drawer pulls, I just referenced that same measurement from the end, and they were all in the same spot. They all lined up. In my opinion, there's few things better than soft close drawer slides. For me, this just never gets old. And just like that, this project is a wrap. Came out beautiful. I'm really, really happy this desk is going to serve me and my family for many, many years to come. Like all my projects, there's always something to learn and get better. So definitely going to take some lessons learned with me. But in my opinion, This piece is the definition of timeless elegance.